we're back. Thank you to everybody who took the time to comment on the first episode we made on this machine. Some very good ideas there. A lot of the stuff we had thought about ourselves, we'd planned to do anyway. We just happened to run out of time on our first episode and we couldn't explore any of those ideas. We're going to revisit this now today. If you guys are watching who haven't seen the first part of this, I'll leave a link in the description as always. Go check that out first, because everything we're about to do in this video is going to make a lot more sense. So we've got a bit of groundwork to do first, just to get back to where we were last time in regards to fuel pump, etc. If you guys recall, on the first episode, at the end we noted the state of this hydraulic tank here. So first protocol for us now today, we're going to whip this tank off, disconnect the pipes, because as somebody did mention on the first video, it's probably going to be a good idea to do so, just in case, or in the event that we do happen to get this engine running, we're not going to draw a lot of rust and crud into the pump there. We have made a bit of progress since the first video. We've got a key. So Dad had a spare 5 minutes and actually popped up since filming that first episode there, just to have a look at what was involved with taking the hydraulic tank. We managed to get all the mounting bolts off the tank there and remove the battery box, which was completely rusted anyway. I don't think there was anything actually holding that in. But as always, what you'd think would be a straightforward task isn't, because the way this hydraulic tank is shaped and it's sat in the machine, you see it comes down here and it's got a bit of a dog leg on it at the bottom, sits into the frame of the machine there. You'd think it'd be as straightforward as unbolting it, disconnecting the pipes and pulling it out, but no, the cab is in the way. So I think to get this out, we're going to have to slacken off all the cab mounting bolts. I think we'll have to pick the cab up there slightly, just to give ourselves a bit of wiggle room. Hopefully try and manoeuvre this out. You can see there from the inside, look, you can't even be pushed inwards and come out from the inside. So what we're going to do now, first of all, we're going to crack off, there's a couple of our row bolts across the back here. We're going to whip them out, and hopefully we can just pick that cab up enough on the back to get this tank out. So we're going to jump straight into this. Let's get to it.
Right, that should be loose enough now. No oil coming up there.
Nothing?
Nothing. So they're off now, so there's no contamination going to go through that pump.
Oh, that's a bit of bad news, mind, isn't it? There's no oil left in our tank.
Budging?
Go on.
Can't beat the Milwaukee.
Tap that up there. Well, first problem of the day. This cab bolt is completely rounded off. It's just completely rusted. It's on this side, right? This side of the machine that looks to have had the brunt of the weather. It's all rusted out. Well, you get that one out there. There's only what appears to only be the 2 mounting bolts on the back end of this cab. We got the one out. That one's giving us a bit of trouble. Unfortunately, it didn't bring any welding gear today. I didn't anticipate we were going to need any. I think the best way to rectify this is just going to be to grind that back a bit and weld a nut on top of them, and then we can cut it out. The heat is also going to help in with removing them C-threads. But it's not too much of a problem. because we've managed to disconnect the hydraulic lines off the pump. So I think what we're going to do now, utilising our time today, we're going to have a stab at this engine again. First thing we're going to do here is take this rocker cover off. So it was suggested that there may be a stuck valve on this. I don't think there is. Purely based on what I said last time and the amount of blow by we're getting back up through the rocker here. I think it is the piston rings, but we're going to go through this step by step and
explore some.
Explore some ideas. Basically, check everything that could be related to lack of compression. So just the 3 bolts up on top here. Holding this rocker on.
Little washers on there as well as there.
Yeah. Copper washers. Alright, so basically what we are looking for is any valves that appear to be stuck down, and we might have to crank this over.
Yeah.
Just to check these valves are all free. The ones that are up appear to be within reasonable tolerance of the rocker arms. So I would say they are in their seated position. It's just those two there. We need to check. So we're back hooked up here now. We've got our new battery leads on. We've reinstated this spade connector here on this trigger wire for the solenoid. And seeing as we have a key now, we're going to see if this thing will turn over this time on
just the key.
On the key. Put some lights on, yeah. Oh, hello.
Good. Have to hold.
Yeah, crank it over.
Lights are gone out now. Oh, no, they're on. I think there's a bad connection in here because the lights have flickered. Try them again.
Yeah.
Hang on. Bit of a fiddle. Right.
Go on.
Bit of a fiddle to get the barrel held.
Stop. Right, so I'm happy that those valves are seating. As you saw there on the video, they're all operating, they're all free to move, and they're all returning back to their seated position. Nothing is sticking down, so I'm confident we're not losing compression through the valves we're not being seated. So I'm confident now that we have definitely got a problem with the piston rings. One thing I do want to check though, and make sure, just before we dive into trying to rectify the piston ring problem, is the glow plugs. Now I'm be honest, every day's a school day. A couple of people commented on the first video and mentioned that these engines, these Kubota engines, need the glow plugs. So as you recall, in the first video, because we didn't have a key, we couldn't start it from the ignition, we had to put a remote starting wand on this, so we weren't able to activate the glow plugs. So I think we're going to go through now. We're going to test each of the glow plugs, make sure they're all okay, and make sure they check out. See if we got power going to them. I think we'll just try and crank it with the glow plugs. If we can get the glow plugs to activate, we'll just try cranking it over with the glow plugs, just to eliminate the fact that it needs the glow plugs to start. I think we have got bigger problems in lack of compression. Because personally, I think even without glow plugs, if we had the right amount of compression on this engine, it should have fired off with ether, and we had nothing, at all. So we'll check these glow plugs out and see where we go. So to do this, ideally you want to test these whilst they're out of the engine. It can be done in situ. You just may get a slightly higher resistance reading through the plug. But what we're going to do, we're going to test each glow plug for its resistance value. Ideally, on a new glow plug, you'd like to see maximum of 1 ohm resistance. But with them being installed like this, you could see anything up to 6 ohms may be acceptable. Anything over that, the plug is no good. So what I'm going to do, you're going to use our multimeter here. We're going to come round to our resistance there, ohms, symbolised by the horseshoe, and just going to select the right scale. So we want, I'm going to put it on 200 ohms, that's as low as it'll go. We would expect to see well below that. We expect to only see 1 ohm, so that is as low as the scale goes on this multimeter. I'm going to check that is correct by just shorting out the 2 probes, and we should have close to 0 there on our reading. Yep. So what I'm going to do, using the positive lead on the multimeter, I'm going to put that on the end of the first glow plug here, just on top of that, the threads there. And I'm going to pick a good ground, which I'm going to go straight to our battery earth there. And you can see there, our resistance value on that one is 1.4, it's flickering here just because there's a bit of corrosion on the threads, but 1.1 ohms.
I think the ignition is still on.
Yeah, so that's fine. There's no power going to the plugs or anything. 1 ohm on that one. That one's good.
Next one.
Move to the next one. Same again. 1 ohm on that one. And then the third one. Oh, this one's quite corroded, so we might have a bit of trouble getting a contact on this. Same again. Oh, there we go. 1.1, 1.4. Yep, so all 3 of those glow plugs are good. So provided now we can get power to them, which might be a bit tricky with the goings on under that panel there, with the loose connections. Alright, you take control of the ignition. See if we get any life.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. No, okay. Enough. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah, I'm convinced we got a big compression problem. Yeah, you can smell the ether coming back out.
Yeah.
Coming up through the past the push rods there.
Right.
Okay, so there's a couple of things we can do here now, just to try and get a seal or get a temporary seal on these piston rings, just enough to get this engine to fire. Because if we can get it to a point where it fires and it'll keep running, as everything heats up, then those piston rings will, touch wood, break free and they will seat back against the cylinder. So there's a couple of things we can try now in order to make that happen. So the first thing we could do, and ideally, realistically, I wanted to do this through the glow plugs rather than the injectors, but looking at where these glow plugs are positioned now, that's a whole load of work to get them out. It even looks like the intake manifold's got to come off, so we're going to have to settle for popping these injectors. But what we can do is pop these injectors out. We can inject a little bit of oil down into the cylinders, and hopefully, providing that gap is not too big between the rings and the cylinder bore, we can put that oil in, and that oil will give us just a little bit of a seal, a temporary seal around them rings. Hopefully will give us enough compression on the cylinder to get it to fire off. We could also, another option, which I personally haven't tried before, but I've heard people have had varying success with, and that is preheating the block.
Yeah.
So I do have auxiliary heater that was originally off a Land Rover Discovery that was designed and put on that car for that exact reason. And what that heater does is basically circulates the coolant round the block, and it preheats it to aid with starting and help the engine warm up quicker. So it may be possible that we can put that heater in line, disconnect the top and bottom rad hoses, put that heater in line, circulate that around, and use that auxiliary heater to heat the coolant up, flow that through the block, and bring the block up to 90 degrees, so we can preheat the block that way. So that may help with expanding things.
That'll expand the block.
Yeah, but I think what we're going to try first off is that oil method.
Okay, we're back from a spot of lunch. Before we left for lunch, we put releasing oil on the injectors, pipes and the injectors to work in. So we're just going to crack on now with the next steps. We're going to take the injectors out.
Okay, so that's all three injectors removed. They don't look in too bad condition, to be fair. There was no real carbon build-up on them, and the pintles on the ends are not damaged. And we just dropped the copper washer there. But with them removed, we've also now got a visual on the ends of the glue plugs. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera. Let's get a bit of light on the situation. Just see the ends of the glow plugs down there. So we could get a visual on that one if these are actually... I know we've done the resistance check on them.
Yeah, if they are glowing.
We could just have a visual now, see if they glow in.
Do you want to put the ignition on then?
Yeah, give it a bit of preheat.
Right, we'll put the ignition on.
We'll just confirm if they are actually glowing.
Ready?
Yeah. The glow light on.
Glow light's on.
Yeah.
You glowing?
Yeah.
Try again.
The smoke billowing out of the injector ports would suggest they're operating.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Oh yeah, you can see where they've changed colour.
Yeah. So you want to be using an engine oil, really, when you're doing this, if you're going to do this. This is just a regular 1540 oil. You need something with a bit of viscosity behind it. Using something like a releasing fluid is it's not going to really work. They're too thin, and what'll happen with that, you'll put the releasing fluid will just run straight past the rings and down into the sump. So the whole goal of this is to get this oil to sit on top or in between the rings, just to give us that seal. So we need the oil to hold up in that area for a short period of time. So I've actually preempted this. We were going to do this, and through the wonders of 3D printing, I've made this little nozzle. The injectors on this engine are actually set back from the pistons, and ideally I would have liked to have utilised something like this and come in directly on top of the piston and injected that oil circumferentially around the cylinder bore, because what happens then is you know for sure that oil is out against the cylinder bore. What happens is that the oil will cling to the cylinder walls and it'll run down then, and you can guarantee that oil is sat full 360 degrees around the outside diameter of that piston and the rings. It's not so much of an issue on engines that have a flat top piston, because you can just pour it in there and you can guarantee or sort of expect that oil to hit the top of the piston, and it will naturally dissipate outwards over the top of the rings. And especially as that piston comes up and it gets under compression, it'll naturally get pushed out to the sides anyway. But where you sometimes can run into an issue with doing that, with just dropping it straight in on top of the piston, is some of the larger engines actually have dished pistons. So on the Hymac 370 that we rebuilt, our Hymac, the pistons are actually dished in the centre. I'll insert a picture here of one of those pistons so you can see what I mean. And where you'd have an issue with that then is if you pour in that oil straight through onto the top of the piston, that oil is just going to sit in that dome in that piston, so it's not actually going to work its way out into the rings, which is why if I'm doing this, I like to inject the oil and push it out, or inject it out onto the cylinder walls, because you know then that oil is out on that cylinder diameter where you need it to be. Can't really do that on this engine because of where we've actually gained access. We're not actually on top of the pistons here. The pistons are over here somewhere. But using this nozzle, I've got an exit hole there, look, 90 degrees. So I'm hoping that if when we inject this, it's going to come out at 90 degrees. Like so. So hopefully that'll get enough oil onto the top of the pistons there. So I'm just going to inject a little bit of oil into each of the cylinder. You don't want to overdo it, because all you're going to end up doing is hydrolocking the engine, right? It doesn't need a lot. So I'm just going to pop that in there, and I'm going to line my nozzle there and aim to inject this back towards the piston. so. So hopefully that's going to create enough of a seal to give us enough compression just to get a bit of combustion in this in each cylinder. Yeah. So the reason I wanted to do this through the glow plugs is now we've taken the injectors out, we've got a bleed system, and this oil is going to give us hopefully it's going to give us a seal, but only for a short period of time. Eventually that oil is going to dissipate, and then we're going to be back to having no compression again. So I don't think we're going to have enough time to be able to crank this and bleed the injectors out and get it to fire. So I think we're going to have to pop the injectors back in, hook our diesel pump back up. I think we're going to have to run this on ether initially, just to get the diesel through whilst we got compression. Okay, so we're all hooked back up here now. We've got our diesel pump connected back in. Just gonna give this a quick clean. I'm going to pour some oil over this top end just to give everything a bit of lubrication. And then I think we're just about ready to give this a whirl. Pop that rocker cover back on.
So there's oil.
Yeah. I have to sort a new gasket, but stop the majority of the oil splashing everywhere.
Just on there loosely, or?
I'm going to nip him up. What do you think, guys? Do you think she's going to run?
Oh, don't drop that down in there. enough diesel up.
There we go. More glow. Go on.
That's seized. No water now, is there? And the filter is gone there. Try cranking it or just to see if she has.
Yeah. That was eventful, wasn't it?
It's running.
Well, it's running. Well, that was a bit spicy, guys, wasn't it? I should have mentioned earlier, mind, that is one risk with doing this, is if those piston rings don't free off pretty quickly, you're going to end up with a runaway, which is what happened there. So we have just had a quick look now as well. There's still a lot of blow by coming through here. So them rings, they haven't freed off. And what's happened, when it has actually picked up then and started to fire over, it's just drawn oil up from the sump past the pistons and it's been burning there then. So no matter where that throttle control was for the fuel, she was just running on oil there. The only way to stop a runaway diesel is to kill the air supply. And as you just saw there, the difficulties we had with this air cleaner didn't make that easy. Because of the way this filter is mounted in here, I couldn't quite get a good seal
In there.
on that intake pipe there. So it took a little while to get her shut off. But she's all right. She didn't explode, didn't seize. She still turns over. Really, thinking about it now, we should have taken this off really. So we just had that intake pipe. But always handy to have a cloth or rag or something to hand when you're doing this, in case that does happen, and you can just block off the air supply, block off the intake, and kill it. What I think we're going to do now, we're not going to run this anymore now. Two reasons. Obviously, we still got this issue with no water in it, so we don't want to overheat it. And obviously, the hydraulic pump is disconnected now, so we don't want to run that pump dry with no lubrication there. I also want to check that rack is free in that fuel pump. So I think that's going to warrant another video on this. I'm not too sure. Looking at the way this pump is now and where it's positioned, it may be a case of having to pull this engine out, or it may be quicker to pull the engine out rather than mess about and try and do this in situ. But I think what we're going to do now, just to end today, we'll pull them injectors back out. We're going to pop an ATF and acetone mix down into the bores there, and leave that soak. Leave it soak for maybe a week or so, and just see if that helps. We have had success with that in the past. Just leaving that soak and that combination, that acetone and ATF, does work as a good release agent. So we'll try that now. If that doesn't work, well, pretty much the only option then is to tear it down.
You've given it a good shot.
Pull the pistons out and manually free them up. But to be honest, if you're going down that far, then you may as well do a rebuild on it. So more to come on this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.